if you're able to really bring 100 customers that love your product, they'll do all the scaling for you if you build it the right way for them. Growth is an amplifier to your business. It helps you scale and focus on what matters to create impacts.
Is growth art or science? How would you describe what that growth mindset is?
The first growth hire should be a generalist, and they should be extremely curious.
How does a company know they have reached product market fit?
So product market fit, organic growth is one key indicator, I would say. I also like what Brian Chesky always refers to as build a product that 100 people love rather than a product that a million kind of likes. One of the biggest struggles is the...
Hi, I'm Sarah Hewardine and welcome to She Builds, where I interview product, marketing and growth leaders to understand how they've scaled high-performance teams, built businesses and the frameworks that got them there. Today, I'm joined by Heidi. Heidi is the Director of Growth at Careem, leading a world-class team in crafting data-driven strategies. For those that don't know, Careem is a super app, one of the largest success stories in the region, being acquired by Uber in 2019 for $3.1 billion. Heidi, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. So look, I want to dive straight into it. We're here to talk a lot about growth as the Director of Growth at Careem. Maybe we can start off super broad and answer the question, what is growth?
Growth is an amplifier to your business. It helps you scale and focus on what matters to create impacts. It's measurable. So you'll be able to focus on and understand what gave you the growth to be able to scale it even further and realize what exactly are the levers you need to play around with to be able to get you to where you need to be. So growth takes on multiple hats as you evolve within your growth journey or within your product journey. It takes on multiple hats from data, from product, from analytics, and all of the different also functions. And it works cross-functionally to be able to deliver on the products that you want to build for your customers.
Amazing. And whenever I speak to people about growth and I think about it, there's this kind of question I always have is growth art or science? And there's so many opinions around what is it. So what is it to you? Is growth art or science?
So it's more science than art, but then you cannot live without the part of art of it, of course. So science, because data is the foundation of growth, and without data you won't be able to really know what to do or when to trigger particular initiatives to your customers. And also without data you won't be able to know what works and what doesn't. So this is where the science part come in. But the art is how you bring it all together. So you need to also have a sense of intuition on what would work before you go into it to be able to have a hypothesis to test. And this is where the art kicks in, as well as also the creatives and the creativity, because at the end, how you deliver it to the customer is a very big part of the success. So even if you know what needs to be delivered and you have all of the right means to deliver it, if you're not able to package it the right way, and this is where the art part comes in, then you will never be able to succeed. So you might say this did not succeed, but it's not the case. It's just that you did not know how to package it right and bring the art element into it.
Beautifully put. So when we talk about, like you say, the art meeting the science, where does it meet the product and where does it meet marketing? So where does growth sit to you? Should it sit in a separate team to, product and marketing? Should it sit within product? What are your thoughts on it?
So it depends on, first, the type of business that you are scaling and also the size of the organization. So there's so many factors that go into this decision, but the most important fact is the ability to be collaborative throughout. So fostering a culture of collaboration from a leadership perspective across all of the different functions, regardless of the size of the organization. This is where the beauty lies, and this is where you're able to work as a single unit to be able to deliver what's best for the customer at the end.
And how do you, I think a lot of, when you try and meet that collaboration, right? Let's say you're in a scenario where you are in your growth team, you're maybe separate from product, you're separate from marketing, but you're sitting at that intersection, right? I think I hear a lot of people struggling to get buy-in from certain teams. I think growth often have to fight to get buy-in on a lot of things they want to do. It's how do you get that buy-in? Like, how do you collaborate when you're not actually in the teams?
So I resonate really well with that. And personally, I believe that this progressive friction is actually quite useful because it actually helps you in bringing in a lot of like objectivity on what you're doing and focus on things that matter and the impact in place. So there is two ways of fostering that buy-in and building a culture of continuous iterations, because it's normal and it's natural for growth to be wanting to run 1,000 things at the same time, to be able to try and test and iterate and find what drives impact. And it's also natural and normal for a tech infrastructure, whether it's product or engineering, to want to be able to have a long-term plan focused on little things that create big wins. So to be able to run that, back again to the same topic of building a culture of collaboration and ensuring that everyone has a shared common goal. And this all starts from leadership. So when the leadership rallies all the troops towards the same goal, so in that objectively, both the growth teams, the marketing teams, as well as also the product teams are running towards the same goal. This can be done in the form of a squad, for example. Building squads. Squads have been very successful because you're building a fully sufficient unit that has a shared goal. And then they're able to collaborate together, work together, and run towards a certain goal. But this is more of a structural change, to be able to really position your entire teams into the form of squads, so that, yes, they are different functions, but then they operate as a single unit. But then there is also the concept of hacking mindset. So a growth, in many cases, they call it a growth hacker, for example. So a growth hacker basically has a hacking mindset. And one part, very big part of that, is being able to build a proof of concept to be able to get the buy-in easily and rally like the product and engineering behind them. So if there's a particular feature that they're trying to build within the product, then maybe they're able to build it in a way that is very hacky. It's not really part of the product, just to prove that, hey, there's value there, and I was able to generate that particular dollars out of it. And then based on that, you will get the buy-in, because it's very tough to ignore data. It's very tough to see like concrete example of, hey, this actually works on a very small scale. What if we actually make it a lot better and build it as part of our product? It's very tough to just look back and ignore the data in that.
Interesting. And you also mentioned like the growth mindset and the growth hacker. How would you synthesize? Because I always hear people say, oh, they've got a growth mindset. And I think a lot of, especially founders, can get really confused but really what growth is. And I think a lot of people have misconceptions that growth is someone that's going to come in and do all these big, huge initiatives to move the business and shift the business. Whereas, like you said, sometimes it's those smaller changes that incrementally like add up. So when we think about like the growth mindset, what are the kind of key skills or attributes? Like, how would you like describe what that growth mindset is?
So it starts first with data. That's the foundation of everything. So they have to be very strong analytically. They're able to become fully dependent on data. Either they're very skilled and they're able to run it by their own, or they're able to operate data and data science teams to be able to get them everything they need, or the ingredients that they need for success. And then they translate this into insights. And then the second most important thing is the technical arsenal. So either they have a very strong technical arsenal of tools or coding skills that they're able to basically build what is needed to scale and automate what they need done, or they have a love of building that and love of exploration in that field, so that they're able to, even if they don't have that very strong skill set, they love to explore it, and then they build it as they go within the organization. And the most important thing, and the third aspect, is an experimentation mindset. And this basically helps bring the two together, the data piece as well as the technical arsenal, to be able to create the final impact for the organization in the form of experimentation and iterations. So they have to have a very strong passion for experimentation to be able to drive the impact in the organization.
When a company is building out their team, what do you believe should be like the first growth hire? Like, what should be the skill set? Like, who should they be? Generalists, specialists? Like, what would that look like?
The first growth hire should be a generalist and they should be extremely curious. So this is when they will ask the right questions to be able to open up their own. No one should tell them where to look or what to do. They should be able to unravel all of the different aspects of the business. They should also hire that particular candidate at a time where they've already found PMF and they're ready to scale. Because if they hire that candidate quite early on, it will be more of a mission of that candidate trying to help them find PMF, or a mission of scaling something that doesn't actually have a PMF. So they first need to have a proper PMF, and then they start pushing with the right candidate to be able to help them scale. So the right candidate is someone that is able to really shift gears very fast. It should be someone that looks at what's the priority today in the organization, and then is able to scale with it as we go. So if we're talking about a case where it's an early stage startup, they just launched. So at that time, your single hire can be just one individual that looks after the acquisition part, while retention and engagement and reactivation is super important at that point, but you don't actually have a base to retain. So for the very first few days, your focus, or few months, or even, like quarters, your focus might be just the acquisition funnel with very minimal effort or a monitoring on the retention and the LTV part. And then you shift gears as you go. So that particular individual, if there's room to scale, then great. But if there's no room to scale, the same person can actually start putting everything on an autopilot for acquisition, and then shift gears, and for a couple of months they focus on engagement, and then they keep shifting back and forth. And this is where also an automation mindset would be super important, because if they don't have automation of mindset, they won't be able to multiply the impact of what they do as they go. Because also one key important element of growth hire is for them to be able to always multiply the impact of what they do. So they build 5 great things. Those 5 great things should be fully automated and part of the business already, so that they're completely free to build another 5 great things as they go, and they move on from there.
So I always thought when you're talking about the funnel there, right, like the acquisition versus retention, where should someone start, right? Starting the business, you're always going to acquire, but then bringing in your first growth hire, maybe post product market fit, should you focus on the retention then, or do you focus on the acquisition and then move to retention? Like, where do you start?
You start first, of course, with acquisition always, because there's no base to retain if you don't acquire first. But that doesn't mean that you don't look at retention at all. So from day one, you will start looking at retention. So day one, you acquire 10 customers. You want to be able to understand who will come back and repeat and purchase again. But at that point, if you're launching initiatives, you're building a strategy, it does not have to be a retention strategy from day one at all, because there isn't really much to be done in that. So maybe some changes in how you acquire. So if retention is not looking great, then you might be acquiring the wrong customer. Maybe some changes in the product. So maybe the product is not really enabling the customer to come back, or the experience or the operation aspect of it, but not really a growth retention strategy as per se from day one. It's more of an acquisition strategy as you start, and you'll know when retention starts to become a game, and this is when you scale and you're able to actually see value in 1 percentage point increase in retention. This is when you get to decide, should I hire even more people to start looking at that part, or does the one person that I have today able to put everything they've built on acquisition on autopilot, and then they shift gears towards retention for some time.
What mistakes do you think people make when they're hiring for growth? And if you're not a growth person yourself and you're hiring for it, because I think people understand growth enough to know where I need to hire. But for anybody who is not a growth leader and they're having to hire growth, like there's a stat I saw recently in a book I was reading, and it said 20% of growth leaders succeed in a startup, only 20%. And I think a lot of that can come from misconceptions of, again, what growth is. Like, what is the struggle and the challenge people face when hiring?
One of the biggest struggles is the unrealistic expectations, I would say. So in many cases I've seen leadership executives, founders, they tend to hire a growth expert, thinking that, for example, they've been trying to 10x their business and with no success. So they hire the growth expert and they expect that that growth expert would 20x the business. And there's no, the most cases, there is no science behind the 10x and the 20x. It was more like, this is where I need to be, and this is the number that I want to shine, and this is where my expectation is from that particular person that I hire. So it's a two-sided mistake. It's a mistake from the founders and the executives that hire that person with that such high expectation, and it's a mistake on the other side that when they came in, they didn't ask the right questions, and they didn't build the right plans to be able to say, yes, I can achieve this, or more like, no, 10x sounds quite drastic. Actually, 5x might seem, and this is why I think the 5x might seem more rational. This is how I see us getting to that particular 5x with clearly specifying the growth plan that they will follow. So it's a two-sided mistake.
It's almost like interviewing the founder, the business owner, before you come in to really understand like their expectations.
100%,
yeah,
100%.
I think a lot of people make that mistake. I really do. I don't think people spend enough time getting to the crux of like, what does this person actually think growth is, and is it aligned with what I can deliver?
Exactly. I would say, even like, I would remove the word interviewing out of it, and I would say just working together for some time before we shake hands, like
before you get married.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, exactly, like an engagement.
Date a bit.
Yeah, let's sit down and see how this will work out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And how was that at Careem then? Early days. So how long have you been at Careem for now?
7+ years.
7+ years, yeah, you've been through it all. What was Careem like in the early days with growth? How did Careem explore growth? And how does that compare to like how growth is maybe managed in the business now?
So I think also 7+ years, growth as a concept was very different than what we have today. So today, under our hands, there's so many tools for automation, personalization, and engagement that were not there 7 years ago. So I would say that within Careem, we were always striving to be the market leaders and like the first to market to bring in any innovations. So over time, we've actually moved from a one-size-fits-all. And as the business scaled, then we started progressing into what we call from acquisition game into retention game. And how do you retain customers more? How do you bring that extra transaction out of that particular customer? How do you even bring more customers throughout the funnel? And then with a customer obsession, we were able to actually also build a super app and say, okay, great, then we've satisfied their mobility needs. What else can we do? What else can be done? So this is also when you bring the growth from just what can I do with the product that I have today to how can I evolve the product into what my customer actually needs. And this is how the idea of the super app was built. We were very customer obsessed, and we were trying to grow by what the customer needs rather than what can I do to grow my own self product. So we've ventured into 15+ services now, and I'm sure you've seen it in the super app platform. This in itself is actually a growth tactic that will basically help us become more relevant to our customer and become the everyday app for them in the region, and opening up new funnels and the growth, which is the cross-sell funnel, which is today one of our biggest bet. It is quite complex, and yeah, with that evolution internally within Careem, externally as well, the entire growth ecosystem is moving towards personalization and engagement and understanding what the customer needs even before they even signal it to you, to be able to serve it in the right place and the right time.
Interesting. And like I love what Careem has done, because I think when I think back to like long time ago, but thinking about when I was in marketplaces and the classifieds model, like the classifieds around the world were all dying a slow death. And the reason I really understood is because they tried to do everything. And what happened is you brought in these really strong vertical players that played the game really well for one vertical. And I think what Careem did really well is you nailed ride hailing and that customer experience so well. You earned the right to play in those 15 plus services. And I think when you see all of the likes of the Debizzle, the Gumtree, the Craigslist, like, yeah, there's still a bit of a place for them. But when you bring in the strong verticals, like that's where the consumer choice goes, right? And I think that what Careem did is you provided a fantastic experience in kind of that one segment. And now I have that trust to navigate the other segments with you, the other kind of services. Yeah. So just regarding product market fit, you mentioned there, like, how does a company know they have reached product market fit?
So product market fit, organic growth is one key indicator, I would say. Generally, if you have to pay for every single customer that comes in, then the customer is not coming purely organically because they love the product. So while it's not always a definite indicator, but if you do find that majority of your traffic is coming by themselves, so then this is a clear indicator that you're very close or you've already hit product market fit. Retention also comes hand in hand because it means that they're coming in, they're happy, and then they're coming back in again, depending, of course, on the nature of the business, if it is a repeat business or not. I also like what Brian Chesky always refers to as build a product that 100 people love rather than a product that 1 million kind of likes. Because also you don't underestimate like the power of like the scale that you can run from just 100 customers. This is just the beginning. Like even if someone is growing a social platform or their social accounts, they tell you just bring the first 50 or the first 100 and then everything scales from there. So products are not very different. If you're able to really bring 100 customers that love your product, they'll do all those scaling for you if you build it the right way for them.
But how do you decide then what channels to test with? Like where to test? Like how do you make that decision for testing new channels?
So A/B testing and experimentation are very important for new channels particularly because new channels are a beauty, especially if you are like a first adapter in the region. So I'll take WhatsApp as an example. WhatsApp launched roughly around 2 years ago it was a long time back with mild marketing, but they started opening up and allowing for wider reach just a couple of years back. And this is when, if you were a first adapter, you would get a lot of like value out of it. But there's always also law of diminishing returns. So the most important aspect here is experimentation and A/B testing. And don't take things at face value. So don't look at, for example, CTRs and conversion and consider this your success metrics. You need to understand the full funnel of any new channel that you bring in. The experimentation or the A/B testing sort of it. So always take a control group to be able to understand what exactly is the impact of that particular new channel that you've added. But it also doesn't stop there. So if you have done the experiment and it gave you incredible results, that does not mean that it will scale with you at the same rate, or over time it will still deliver at the same rate. There is always a law of diminishing return, whether you're increasing budgets or even if you're not increasing budgets, the dynamics around you, the competition, everything will change. So by time, whatever value any channel is giving you, it will definitely change over time. So it's very important that always have a holdout group so that you're able to quantify the impact, you're able to like pull back and scale up as you see this impact increasing or decreasing with you as you go.
And what channels are working for you right now?
So what works is actually finding the right customer in the right channel, because also in a market like, let's talk about UAE, for example, it's a very diverse market. It's not like the diversity that you see here across cultures, age groups is just like insane. So there's no one channel fits all or one size fits all. So it's always a mistake to just look at growth as a siloed channel and say, this is the channel that works best for us, so this is only what we're doing. You cannot scale in that form. So the most important thing is to be able to crack every single channel by itself, find the winning formula, and then you will have a omni-channel presence, because not all customers are the same. So what works is mostly being able to find the right channel per the right customer, per the right time, and being able to trigger it at that time.
And how do you approach experimentation at Careem, and how do you build the right culture of experimentation?
So generally, what we do in Careem is we always have an experimentation roadmap very early on. This basically helps you isolate the execution from the strategy phase. So it helps you run a lot faster. So you know exactly what you're experimenting over the next 6 months or 1 month or 3 months, depending on how the time frame you set for your experimentation roadmap. And for every single experiment, there has to be a very, very clear measurement criteria. And this measurement criteria, it helps you ensure that the design of the experiment is built the right way to be able to achieve the success that you want. And also, it enables the teams to make sure that the data is there, it's set up in the right space and place, the events are there, to be able to truly measure it. And generally, there are 3 main metrics or success or even measurement criteria that we look at for experiments. So you generally have the primary metric, and this is where this is the success. So you're launching, for example, a particular campaign to increase the credit card penetration. So what would be the success? It will be the users that adapt and then they add their credit cards on file. The second part is the control metrics, and this is where we call them cost metrics. So you have, for example, the CAC, the ROI metrics, the cost per incremental revenue, and everything also has to be in an incremental form to be able to understand for every single additional user that I got, how much that I have to pay. And we call them control metrics because while the primary metric might be absolutely great and you see like incredible uptick out of it, if the control metric does not make sense to the business and it does not make viable sense to our margins or to the customer's LTV, then in this case, it's not really a successful experiment. So this is where the primary metric plus the control metric give you, I would say, somewhat a full picture, but it's not yet a full picture. The full picture comes in after you add in the opportunity lost metric, because in a lot of cases, there is one aspect in the business that you're not actually looking at, which could be a blind spot to you, where you've actually lost opportunity from that particular initiative that you've run. So opportunity lost metrics are, what is it that I could have harmed the business with by launching that particular experiment? And I monitor it for it just to make sure that everything looks clear from that. And this is where your experiment becomes successful, when you have cleared all of the 3 touch points, which is like primary metrics, control metrics, and then the opportunity lost metrics.
And how, given looking at those metrics and the experimentation, how have you got an example of where you've done this at Careem? Like maybe where you did a small experiment and then it's kind of ballooned into like a larger growth shift for the business. Have you got anything that's worked really well?
If I talk on more of a high level, more of a product example, if we look at our food delivery business today, that's actually was a small experiment where we launched the box service. The box service was meant to deliver anything from point A to B for customers, and then there was a clear need that what customer wants are deliveries. So there was a lot of orders that were coming from food deliveries, and this is where we basically started scaling into a food delivery service. So why not make it into a full product? So instead of a customer ordering from restaurant to customer, then we build it into a full product, and then it became our food delivery business today, which is one of our biggest verticals.
Yeah, amazing. There's a lot of this commentary right now around like growth loops and like what growth loops are. It's like, what is a growth loop?
A growth loop is an organic piece of your product that is able to scale like without putting any or minimal money into it. So it's an acceleration or a multiplier of your impact. So in very simple terms, it's when one customer tends to bring another one or two or three or four. A growth loop is best built within the product itself rather than synthesized. So I see a lot of companies trying to synthesize a growth loop that would sit on top of their product, but I've rarely seen cases where it actually succeeds. The success comes only when you actually build the growth loop as part of your product.
And what about I guess like finding and building it? How do you make sure that your team have that culture of understanding what growth loops are and making sure it becomes part of their day-to-day understanding, building and scaling? It's like that is growth loops, but how do you make sure it's built within your team?
So becoming customer obsessed, I would say, is one main way. So asking the questions such as, how does this solve for the customer? What does the customer actually need? Why would they want to use that product again? Why would they want to tell someone else? So back to the example of synthesizing the growth loop, a lot of companies tend to rely on referrals, for example, incentivize referrals to create a synthesized growth loop. The problem with that is that the reason why the customer is referring the product is the incentive. So that in itself is not sustainable. The proper growth loop should be where the customer wants and benefits out of actually referring your product. Similar, for example, to WhatsApp. So this is how WhatsApp scaled. WhatsApp scaled with very minimal marketing spend because it was quite a great idea and people needed it. PMF was there, but also for me to be able to benefit, I want my friends, I want my family, I want everyone that I'm interacting with to be on it. So the more I bring, the more I benefit out of the product. So the incentive is not material. The incentive is actually me benefiting back from the product. So being able to ask those right questions internally within the team does help build that culture and foster that part.
Mm. So SEO has changed so much even in the last 6 months, and I think with like Google AI overviews and everything happening, it's shifting a lot in terms of like how you do SEO and how you build organic. So what are your thoughts on how AI is actually affecting the SEO landscape as well?
So I suppose SEO will be bigger than ever in the upcoming phase. Mostly like SEO, the terms itself is like search engine optimization. It's just an engine, one engine, and that engine is Google, as we all know it. But it's no longer the case, like with just the very recent news. So ChatGPT just built like their own search engine powered by its AI capabilities. So we're moving into a world where SEO will not just be the Google search engine, but then there will be so many search engines out there that we're customizing towards. Today, the ChatGPT is launching without ads, which means that generically your SEO will be more important than ever at this point to be able to become more relevant. There is also all of the different diverse pieces of content and forms where you can actually customize your websites today. So it's not just text. There's so many other ways to be able to build that personalization. So SEO will just be bigger than ever, and the organic space will become very important over the next few years. Yeah.
I guess my final question to you would be, we have a mini tradition here called Pass the Toolkit, where I like you to share a resource, an app, a book, a podcast, or anything that you think anybody in the growth space should read or listen to. So what would yours be?
There's so many, but if I would pick one, I would say Reforge. Reforge is, I wouldn't call it a tool, but it's more of a community. So Reforge is great for growth-specific views and topics, as well as also networking. So if you join any of their, you have two options there. One of them is actually seeing the content offline and being able to interact with it and leverage it within your day-to-day. And the other option is to sign up for a class or a cohort, as they call it, and this will enable you with a lot of live interactions and networking. So the latter I tend to highly advise for, because it helps you also build a network and connections, which helps you understand what are other companies doing out there, how are they leveraging the growth topics that you're covering, how are they using it, and all of the different use cases, all of the different challenges, and then you're able to bring that back into your day-to-day. So yeah, I would say Reforge, definitely.
Amazing. Awesome. I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you so much. I think we've explored everything from building a team 101 to the growth mindset, experimentation. So for anybody listening, please like, share and subscribe. There's more episodes to explore as well. And thank you, Heidi.